This year is the 30th anniversary of the Power Rangers franchise, which is a series that I was a huge fan of growing up. As a kid, I started watching Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and watched all the way through until partway into Lightspeed Rescue. It wasn't until years later that the entire franchise ended up on Netflix and I could catch up where I left off. With them making a Netflix special movie for the anniversary featuring some of the past Rangers and paying tribute to the many actors and actresses who have passed away as the series went on, I figured now is the best time to make some top 10 and top 5 videos showing my love for this great franchise. And what better place to start than the video games? Power Rangers has had a ton of video games over the years, but not all of them are really worth your time. So I sat down, replayed a bunch of my favorites, as well as played a bunch of newer games for the first time to narrow down the top 10 best Power Rangers games of all time. If you enjoy these videos, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn notifications to all so you won't miss the next video. Now let's begin.
Number 10.
Power Rangers Super Legends was a game I picked up for my PC back in 2007 from a Walmart bargain bin, and was pleasantly surprised by. Not that the game is anything to write home about, but the PS2 and Wii era of gaming had some of the worst ever licensed games in shovelware. So to grab a mediocre action platformer beat 'em up featuring the Power Rangers from multiple different seasons was a bit of a treat. The story in this game starts off promising, with Lord Zedd opening up time portals to band together with other Power Rangers villains, but overall ends in disappointment. It was cool to play as Power Rangers from multiple different series, as well as piloting their Megazords in short minigame battles, but the game is overall fairly bland and clunky, and all the Power Rangers and Megazords play exactly the same. While not complete garbage, Power Rangers Super Legends deserves its place at the back of the line at number 10.
Number 9.
There were a decent amount of Power Rangers games on the Game Boy Advance, but only a few of them were really worth checking out. The first of which being Power Rangers Ninja Storm. This game is kind of similar to Super Legends in that it's a fairly generic side-scrolling beat-em-up, but is even more simple than Super Legends was. The controls feel a bit stiff, but you can choose your team of Rangers, then choose which Ranger from that group you'd like to play as, making small differences in the gameplay and story. You may be wondering why I put this game above Super Legends despite it seeming like a worse game overall. Well, unlike Super Legends, Ninja Storm never had any janky glitches that wouldn't let me progress the game at times. But most importantly, if you play as Tori the Blue Wind Ranger, you can get her shuriken machine gun and essentially turn her into freaking Rambo. I had way too much fun blowing dudes away in this incredibly simplistic game, but for that, it earned its place at number 9.
Number 8.
Coming in at number 8 is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie on the Super Nintendo. Hailing from the golden age of the franchise, this game was a bit of a disappointment compared to the other Mighty Morphin games, but was still a decent game to play. Again, we have another generic side-scrolling beat-em-up with some minor platforming, but this game lets you play unmorphed, which I always thought was pretty cool. Unfortunately, instead of free movement like most beat-em-ups, this game has 2 planes you can move on in between, sorta like Fatal Fury. When morphed, pretty much all the characters play the same other than their special attacks, but when unmorphed, everyone attacks a bit different. I thought it was hilarious that Aisha used the Captain Kirk double axe handle attack. Now all she needs is his epic wall jump drop kick. Meanwhile, Kimberly here belongs in the Power Slap League. Just look at her slapping the putties' faces off. Strangely enough, the story and levels themselves have little to do with Power Rangers, making this feel like a game that was already made, then someone decided to stamp the Power Rangers logo on it. Not a bad game by any means, but we've still yet to reach the cream of the crop.
Number 7.
Power Rangers SPD was the best and last of the Game Boy Advance games for the series. Despite the not so great looking visuals, this game was actually pretty darn good. It follows the story of the show pretty closely, allows you to play as all the different members of Delta Squad, each of them having their own special abilities, weapons, and vehicles. This game is more than just some action platformer beat 'em up, as some missions have their own special objectives, not to mention a bunch of minigame styled missions in the Zords to diversify the action. I really liked how each Ranger was a little bit different and had their own stages designed around their unique abilities. Pink Ranger can punch through walls, Red Ranger can phase through solid objects, and the Yellow Ranger can split into duplicates in order to take on larger groups of enemies. Some Rangers can double jump, while some have a wall jump or roll ability. This game honestly kinda reminded me of the fun Game Gear Shinobi games from back in the day. so of course I had to give it a decent ranking here at number 7. You even get to play that epic scene where the Shadow Ranger absolutely annihilates 100 enemies in that pit to try and save his wife.
Number 6.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on the Genesis is loved by few and hated by many. I grew up playing the Game Gear version of this, so when I played the Genesis version, I was pretty excited to see how much better it was. Unfortunately, the Genesis version actually wasn't as good as the Game Gear one, which is why it's back here at number 6. The game is a bizarre fighting game that takes place during the first season of the show. I loved how it followed the story, covering most of the bigger points in the season, and allowing you to unlock the Green Ranger after you beat him in his Dragon Zord in battle, just like the show. The visuals in this game are pretty decent. I especially like the look of the backgrounds during the Megazord battles, and just the locations in general really feel like they're ripped directly from the show. The biggest downsides are the lack of moves and basic controls that can make it pretty tough to beat your opponents. I generally have to use Zack's spinning axe attack or the Green Ranger's dagger zap in order to cheese my way to victory. All in all, not the greatest game from the Mighty Morphin era, but not the worst, so I feel it really belongs here in the 6th spot.
Number 5.
I'm not going to go on for too long on this one because Mighty Morphin Power Rangers for the Game Gear is essentially just a better version of the previous game on this list. The Game Gear version added more attacks as well as stages, special moves, and enemies. It also added in a single player versus mode, allowing you to battle out some of your dream matchups. I might be a bit biased in liking this in the Genesis game because Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on the Game Gear is what immediately comes to mind when I think of the classic Power Rangers games. This Game Gear game in particular was the one I spent hours and hours playing when my cousin let me borrow his copy. This is a great little game, and if you play this, there really is no point in ever playing the inferior Genesis version.
Number 4.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on the Super Nintendo is another fairly basic beat-em-up, but it has a lot more love and charm put into it than the previous beat-em-ups on the list. This game looks and plays really well. While still unfortunately keeping you locked only 2 directions of movement, this game carries that Power Rangers energy and atmosphere like none of the previous entries did. Allowing you to choose which Ranger you'd like to play as before each stage lets you get to try out each of the different characters, and at least while they're unmorphed, they all play and feel a little bit different. One of my biggest gripes with this game, along with a bunch of the others, is that once morphed, all the Power Rangers look and almost play exactly the same. They're all just palette swaps of the Red Ranger and have the Tyrannosaurus helmet just with different colors. On the bright side, this one actually has some great stage design with some decent platforming too. Heck, it controls better than Super Metroid. Look at that slick and easy to perform wall jump. Unfortunately, this game only has a small number of Megazord battles at the end, but the music, gameplay, and vibe perfectly capture that 90s Power Rangers feel.
Number 3.
Now we're getting to the games that anyone could enjoy playing. Up until now, if you weren't already a Power Rangers fan, I probably wouldn't have recommended you check out those earlier games. But from here on, it's pure gold. Starting with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers The Fighting Edition on the Super Nintendo. In this game, you play as either the Thunder Megazord or the Mega Tiger Zord and fight your way through the multiple giant-sized Power Rangers villains from the later seasons of the Mighty Morphin series all the way to Lord Zed and Ivan Ooze. Sure, some of these fights might not be canon, but the gameplay and animation are super crisp, and each character has a bunch of different special attacks and super moves they can pull off. It's definitely worth trying out all the characters in fighting mode so you can see all their moves and playstyles and find out which ones you like the most. For being an incredibly well-made fighting game that can stand up there with the best of them on the Super Nintendo, as well as allowing me to play as the Thunder Megazord, my favorite Megazord of all time as the main character, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers The Fighting Edition stands strong at number 3. Fun fact, this game's engine would later be used to make the excellent Gundam Wing fighting game Endless Duel for the Super Nintendo as well.
Number 2.
Until very recently, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie on the Sega Genesis was my favorite Power Rangers game. Finally, a fully realized beat-em-up game featuring mech battles where each of the Power Rangers actually looks like they should and plays a bit different. This game was and still is the pinnacle of Power Rangers games, giving you a great quality beat-em-up game with a variety of different moves, characters, and mechs, while not only following the movie's story, but also letting you play through important parts from the series in flashback sequences. This to me is the full package when it comes to the Power Rangers video game experience. If you're a classic Power Rangers fan and a fan of classic beat-em-up games, you really need to check this game out. Everything in this game looks and feels like it should, and the Zord battles, whilst being a bit on the clunky side, are incredibly fun. So grab a friend, sit down, and play this fantastic Power Rangers game on the Genesis.
Number 1.
I know I just said that the previous game on the list is the ultimate Power Rangers video game experience, but Power Rangers Battle for the Grid is still the best all-around Power Rangers game. A really well done 3-on-3 fighting game, Battle for the Grid has some of the best fighting game combat I've ever played. So good that I'd sworn off fighting games back in 2013 after playing the crap out of Street Fighter 4, Mortal Kombat 9, and King of Fighters 13. I just got burnt out on the genre and never again felt the need to play another fighting game. Fast forward to about a month ago when Battle for the Grid came on sale. With the Power Rangers 30th anniversary coming up, I most definitely had the itch to play some Power Rangers games, and had heard nothing but good things about this one. So I made sure to grab the Super Edition containing all the extra content up to May of 2021 and instantly fell in love. The visuals and gameplay are so darn smooth. I love being able to play as a bunch of my favorite characters from the past 30 years of this great franchise. Most importantly, every single character plays differently and has their own attacks, special attacks, weapons, and super moves. You even get to assign Megazords or just gigantic Goldars, an equalizer move to help bail you out if you start getting bodied by your opponents. Control-wise, I would say it's closest to something like Dragon Ball FighterZ, but it's kind of its own thing, to be honest. I haven't even mentioned one of the best parts of the game, its story mode. Battle for the Grid's story was written by Boom Comics writers and follows the now legendary among fans Shattered Grid story, an alternate timeline version of Tommy who never turns good, takes over his world, and begins enslaving other Rangers as he harnesses the power of their morphers and power coins to become the evil, all-powerful Draken. To top it all off, they actually got a bunch of the original actors to reprise their roles as the voice actors for their characters. Power Rangers Battle for the Grid is the perfect love letter to both the fans and the franchise, and for all these reasons, it deserves its place at the top as the #1 best Power Rangers game of all time. Before I get to the lone honorable mention, if you enjoyed this video, I just ask that you help me out by liking and subscribing to my channel. If you want to be notified whenever I post a new video, be sure to turn notifications to all. I also want you to know that I'd love for you to join me live on my Twitch channel, where I stream at least 3 nights per week at twitch.tv/Dookie03. The only honorable mention here is a game I would have loved to play and add to the list. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Mega Battle on the PS4 and Xbox One looks like a fantastic retro-inspired beat-em-up game from the Mighty Morphin era. Unfortunately, due to copyright issues or something, this game can no longer be purchased as far as I know, which is too bad because it looks awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. I'll be doing a few different Power Rangers themed videos this year, so I hope you look forward to them. See ya!